Nintendo DS and PSP both failed. Yes, I know that's quite a provocative claim, so allow me to explain myself. Now, these systems both did very well for themselves. Nintendo DS, which many of the so-called experts called the next Virtual Boy, completely dominated at retail for the duration of its reign as Nintendo's flagship handheld system. And the PSP, while it failed to fulfill its lofty, prophesied total destruction of Nintendo's handheld empire, it did well. It did well enough. It remained a viable console, and if you were the connoisseur kind of gamer who knew what they were looking for and was willing to do a little research and dig, further behind the obvious blockbuster games, PSP had a pretty decent library. So, how did these systems both fail miserably? They failed in, well, both the DS and the PSP. When they were both first introduced in 2004 at E3, Nintendo and Sony had visions for those systems that were never fully realized. It was much more explicit with Sony, so I'll use them as the example. Sony basically they stated outright they wanted PlayStation Portable to be the Walkman for the new century. In their concept photographs, they showed people walking down the street, walking around with their PSPs, playing games, listening to music, watching movies. No nerdy gamer stigma attached to it. And they wanted the PSP. They literally wanted it to be the next gen Walkman. They wanted it to be the device of choice, the convergence device, lifestyle device of choice for video games, for music, for motion pictures on the go, and for internet access, for all those sorts of things. Basically everything short of making phone calls. And on the other hand, we have Nintendo DS. It's not widely available. I haven't. It's you have to probably dig to find this, but Nintendo had concept footage during E3 2004 of people playing Nintendo, people of the DS sort of as a lifestyle device of kids in the playground using PictoChat to chat with their friends in local wireless and the like. And that intent was there with Nintendo DS as well. It became more explicit later on when before they even announced, I think, yes, this was before they even announced the Nintendo DSi, Cammie Dunaway in the infamous, was it E3 I believe, there was a moment amongst all the boring crap where she talked about the possibility of using your Nintendo DS as your boarding pass to board an airplane. They were talking about the experimental stuff they did where you bring your Nintendo DS and for a small fee you could download a temporary app into your DS using DS Download Player where you could watch instant replays of the game that in progress, where you could order refreshments to your seats, where you could participate in live trivia with other DS owners in the stadium. And those things from Nintendo, Nintendo basically made the DSi, in my opinion, to further their intention to make the DS a lifestyle device. And especially with software such as the Personal Trainer series with Brain Age, and being able to put some different aspects of that into a system without having to carry multiple cartridges, which is what the DSi was all about. That stuff, basically, Nintendo and Sony wanted their systems to become lifestyle devices, and especially Sony. Keep in mind, this is 2004, and for Nintendo games, but 2008. In 2004 when these systems were first revealed. Nintendo is showing and Sony are showing this stuff. This is before the smartphone revolution. This was back when a PDA and a mobile phone were two different devices. This is before the iOS, the smartphone and tablet revolution happened. So Sony especially wanted the PSP to be everything that the iPod Touch is today, and they failed at that. Nintendo wanted to put the DS in a position where it'll be the original Nintendo DS would be a lifestyle device where people bring it, to use at baseball games, use it as a boarding pass, and now it's the iPhone and the iPod Touch and tablets and smartphones that have taken that niche. So Nintendo and Sony saw that opportunity, and they wanted to move into that space, especially Sony with their PSP, with their DS, and they missed the boat entirely. And smartphones and tablets gobbled that space up. And so now we have PlayStation Vita trying to reposition itself into that space, and we have the 3DS. Hey, if you're a Nintendo gamer, if you play like video games enough to be interested in a Nintendo system, the 3DS, through all its features, especially now, not so much launch, but now, the 3DS basically serves every function a iPod Touch would to me if I had an iPod Touch. I mean, aside from, the plethora of apps, but in terms of all the core features, 3DS does all that stuff. So they've still missed the boat. The 3DS is never going to have the universal appeal of the iPod Touch, and the PlayStation Vita is never going to. It has the potential to become a lifestyle device for hardcore gamers, the 3DS and DS, but they're not going to become this massive mainstream universal lifestyle device. And in that sense, Nintendo and Sony saw that opportunity when they were with the DS and PSP. They tried to move into that space and they failed. So that is the way in which both the Nintendo DS and the PSP were failures. So that's my thoughts on that subject, and thank you very much for watching.